record button. So hello and welcome to today's Info2Go webinar. My name is Annie Gaines and I am the Continuing Education Consultant here at the Idaho Commission for Libraries, located in sunny Boise, Idaho. Our webinars and other continuing education opportunities are funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Everyone is muted and we encourage you to use the chat feature to ask questions and discuss with other attendees. As you exit the webinar, you'll be prompted to complete an evaluation. As always, we appreciate your honest feedback. Today's topic is the Idaho Veterans Guide, and our presenter today is Marisa McCarter from the Idaho Division of Veterans Services. Marisa, please take it away.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Marisa McCarter, as she said, from the Idaho Division of Veterans Services. I actually have quite a few roles in the veteran community, but the main thing is I try to find ways to get resources in front of veterans in a way in which the veteran comes first. And as you may have heard, my main role is that of Community Resource Assistant for the Idaho Division of Veterans Services. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, hopefully you all can see that all right. So today I'm going to be going over the Idaho Veterans Guide. This is another one of those many roles I have. I am the Community Engagement Specialist for the Idaho Veterans Guide, and really be talking to you about how to navigate it and how you can use it for veterans who maybe you interact with on a daily basis or who you may find in need of resources. But before that, I kind of wanted to share with you a veteran's perspective on why we came to decide we needed this Idaho Veterans Guide and these resources in one place across the state of Idaho for everyone to access, not just veterans. And for that, I'll kind of share a bit about me, as I am myself a veteran. At 19 years old, I served in OIF-3 as a combat medic. And I guess I won't talk about how long ago that was, but I will say it was rough. And unfortunately, I came home when my dear friend didn't. She was actually 3 months younger than myself. I struggled for a long time, for over 10 years, actually. I wouldn't call myself a veteran, let alone file for benefits or think that I deserved help. And I tell you this not because my story is unique. It's a very common story. I want you to know that a lot of veterans are stuck in that mindset, and we think of them as heroes, but they don't think of themselves that way. And that's why it's really become my mission to help them get out of that mindset. Because as I'm sitting here before you, obviously my story has a happy ending. But for a lot of veterans, they're still stuck there. And that's why we came up with the Idaho Veterans Guide. I was born and raised here in Boise, Idaho, as was my husband. We traveled all over the world in the United States, serving in the military. But when we decided to start a family, we came back here to Idaho. And that's when we had our daughter and we had a son on the way. And I started really seeing the impact of these negative beliefs that I had about myself impacting my family and my daughter and my friends. And I realized I needed a change. I didn't even know where to begin. Again, wouldn't file for benefits, wouldn't reach out for help. But I did hear about a veterans garden in Caldwell, Idaho. And my friend actually had a garden box dedicated to her there. And that was what I now call my doorway. And I believe, yep, I've got pictures. That's my next slide. This is the Idaho Veterans Garden. And as you can see, these raised garden boxes are dedicated to veterans no longer with us. And that right there, that's the Herrera family who lost their son, but you will find them out there almost every day growing flowers there in that garden box. And that's where they get their quote unquote dirt therapy. And that's where I got mine. And that's where I met Danny Pugmire, who runs the Idaho Veterans Garden. And he introduced me to someone named Mitzi Sheldon. So I am so sorry she couldn't be here today, but she is the community resource coordinator for the Idaho Division of Veteran Services. And she has this tendency that when she finds a veteran in need and at that doorway to recovery, she can just kick it down. And that's exactly what she did for me. I met her, I didn't realize it, but I was starting something called exposure therapy. I was associating with the word veteran. I was associating with my comrades and my community. And Mitzi just grabbed my hand, pulled me through the door, encouraged me to reach out for those resources. And one of the most important things that I'll discuss later on is she connected me to a VSO, a Veteran Service Officer, and that they are all over the state of Idaho. And that was the huge turning point for me. Our veteran service officers advocate on the behalf of veterans for benefits that they deserve from their time in service. Truthfully, for me, meeting with a VSO and filing for those benefits wasn't even about the benefits themselves. That was the point in which I said, I went through this. I actually served. I am a veteran and I can get help. So that was me. Just now I'm through the doorway. I'm on this full path to recovery. And I share this with you because this was my doorway. And like I said, my story is my own, but it's not unique. And we are so blessed in the state of Idaho to have so many doorways available to our veterans, whether they want to connect directly to the VSO and skip the connecting with the community, or they enjoy hunting or poetry, pottery. We've got all sorts of programs and resources available to veterans to help them on that path, whatever it may be. We just didn't really have a way to get it in front of veterans. After I went through this doorway, I spent about 4 or 5 years volunteering in the veteran community to learn these resources, learn these programs, and really, back to that mission of getting resources in front of veterans in a way where the veteran comes first. I just wanted to arm myself with knowledge. And unfortunately, fortunately, I found a lot of amazing groups and organizations with the same mindset. Unfortunately, there were a lot of resource guides already out there, but we found a few major problems. And these were them. A lot of these organizations will create resource guides with the best intentions, and they're still some of my favorite charities, and I support them and volunteer with them every day. But unlike the beautiful books we have in our libraries that are timeless and will serve us always, a lot of these resource guides needed to stay up to date. And once they were printed, if someone changed a phone number, that caused problems. We can't print, distribute, and then bring it all back in if we needed to update a phone number and redistribute. So a lot of the information in these guides was actually out of date, and the veterans using them weren't getting a response from the resources listed. We also had a lot of closed networks. The problem is a lot of these charities, they're still fighting for funding. They're still looking for support. So unfortunately, they might omit some information like their competition, or they simply just don't know. They have a closed network and their reach only goes so far, which is something even I have an issue with. I can't complete or make a complete resource guide because my knowledge is limited. And then lastly, the most difficult one I found was sponsored information. And this is uncommon, but has happened where a lot of resource guides are actually funded by organizations where they get put to the top of the list. And that to me, while may be important and they may serve the veteran just fine, it just doesn't quite meet that criteria of putting the veteran first. So I reached out to Mitzi and said, we need an online guide that's entirely third party. Everyone else can control their information they input. It's just verified. Don't know how we're going to do it, but it needs to get done. And she said, worry not. There was actually a committee of people that had already come together and started trying to tackle these exact problems, that I was not alone. And we brought together members of our active military bases, such as Gowan. We brought members of the VA, we brought members of the state, i.e. Mitzi, and our local community in the form of the Idaho Veterans Network, the Elks, and some veterans just like myself and parents of veterans who had the same problem. They just wanted access to all these access to all these resources or doorways in a way that was easily navigatable. So we came up with the Idaho Veterans Guide. We weren't quite sure how we were going to do it, but we knew it needed to happen. So this is what we came up with right from the start. The Idaho Veterans Guide helps Idaho veterans and their families identify support resources by providing access to a comprehensive and current list of service providers through an easy-to-use web-based platform. It was a great idea. We just had to figure out how to do it. We are very, very fortunate in that it already existed. There was actually a nationwide database that already existed. We just needed to find a way to tie it into the veterans community. So now I will get into the Veterans Guide and some of the things that it actually does. This is what's on the agenda for direct information about the Veterans Guide, but I just wanted to pause for a moment and make sure we didn't have any questions out there.
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So this database that already existed is something called findhelp.org, and it is a nationwide database. And we did have a few of these doorways into the database, or platforms, as I like to call them, already existing here in Idaho. So it really was a no-brainer just to create one specified towards veterans, to support veterans. And so I'll start with our mission. And this is again pulled from findhelp.org, but is really truly the basis of everything we do with the Idaho Veterans Guide. I break it into 3 parts. That is to get all low or no cost resources to those in need with dignity and ease. So I break it down into 3 chunks because they really speak to how we use the Veterans Guide and why it exists. And the first part is get all low or no cost resources to those in need. All low or no cost. It's not just veteran specific resources. This is for our community. If we have a healthy community, we have healthy veterans. This is also because a lot of our veterans don't have veteran specific resources readily available to them. And I always use the example of if we have a veteran in Middleton and he needs a food bank, which is actually a very common request from our community, there may be one right around the corner for him that is not only excited to help him, but may have additional resources in his immediate community that they have knowledge on. However, if he only got veteran-specific resources, it might send him clear down to the Boise VA, where we do have an amazing food bank from our voluntary services. But that's a very long drive, and chances are they aren't educated on resources that may be available to him in Middleton. So getting all resources available to him, including the ones right around the corner, opens us up to our community as well as additional information. The next part of that, to those in need, it doesn't say veterans in need. Veterans, we like to serve. That's part of why we joined. A lot of veterans on deployments, you'll not hear them talk about politics. You'll say they're there for their brother next to them. Well, when they get out of the military and they come back to their communities and their aunt or their mom in Missouri asks for help and they can't or don't know how to help their family members, that affects them on a very deep level. So opening this up to everybody, all resources for veterans and their loved ones. Now veterans can also serve their family and help take care of their family, which again is part of this, what we like to call total or whole health approach. When we have all these things in balance, then we have a balanced veteran. And lastly, with dignity and ease. So dignity of a response from the programs that are listed and the ease of navigating these resources in an online platform. So that is the mission, broken down into 3 pieces, serving the entire community, all low or no cost resources, the dignity of a response, and the ease of navigating online. So a little bit more about the how. This is the findhelp.org platform or national database that we have accessed. And you'll see there we also have the Idaho Health Data Exchange and findhelpidaho.org. These are additional doorways into the same database. So if you are a medical provider and you say, well, I'm listed on the Idaho Health Data Exchange, or I'm listed on helpidaho.org, do I need to list on the Idaho Veterans Guide? Nope. You're already on there, and vice versa. Everybody that's listed on the guide will also be listed in these doorways as well. Again, when we found this database, probably about 80% of the resources that Mitzi and I reach out to were already listed in the database. So it just made sense. But why did we need to create the Idaho Veterans Guide if we already had findhelpidaho.org and the others? My biggest reason is statistics, but there's a few reasons. Every doorway that's created into this national database keeps the access to listings free. So this is how we like to call it an investment in our community. In creating additional doorways, we are guaranteeing that all this information stays available to everyone. Our libraries, our VSOs, our family members, our loved ones, they have access to all these resources at any time from their mobile devices. There's also a free suite of tools. So earlier I talked about sponsored listings on resource guides. This is a level playing field. Everybody that's listed, they have the same program card. They don't get to use their logo. They don't get to pay their way to the top of the listing, which is part of down there, the free from ads or sponsors. This is a level playing field for all those resources available. And that means a lot to me because, like the Idaho Veterans Garden, there's a lot of organizations out there that maybe don't have time to invest in advertising. They really are boots on the ground doing the hard work, but their resources are so important to get in front of our veterans. I can't imagine what would have happened if I hadn't have just stumbled across the garden. So this really levels that playing field, and that free suite of tools helps those organizations like the Idaho Veterans Garden that maybe didn't have a schedule or an intake form or a referral system. Now they have access to their own. And that's actually my next slide right here. These are those free tools, the screener form, the intake scheduler, and the one-step referral. So if there's anyone out there that maybe has a low or no cost program that they're thinking about listing in the Idaho Veterans Guide or for the state of Idaho in general, these tools will be available to you. This screener form just allows you to collect additional information when someone connects with your program card to make sure they're eligible. Again, a lot of these are low or no cost, so that means there's certain eligibility requirements. Sometimes that's income level, and sometimes they only serve certain demographics. So these screener forms help you kind of target manage your target audience and also collect additional information on who you've been serving that you can access later on. There's also the intake scheduler. That's a calendar appointment. So if you would rather people just schedule a one-on-one meeting with you, they have that all integrated into this one system. And then finally, the one-step referral. This is a huge one, and it's actually a big reason why we have the Idaho Health Data Exchange and findhelpidaho.org. A lot of our service providers in the medical community were looking for a way to manage their referrals in a way that, again, could level the playing field. They could connect to everyone. Even the mom and pop shop down the road could connect to the big corporations. And that's where they did it, was through this platform with this secure one-step referral system. And I say secure because, next slide, they are HIPAA, high trust, and FERPA compliant and certified. Again, because this really started as a focus on the medical community, they wanted to make sure that all these certifications and compliances were met, and they are. And because it is one-step referral system, it is very easy to manage sending out the information as well as confirming that they did get that dignity of a response. So we can get into that a little bit more, but I will say today I'm really just going to go over how to navigate rather than getting into too far of how to manage those programs. But I will make sure to provide additional information on that if you would like to list a program. So my biggest reason, and this is the last slide on the big why, my biggest reason for really pushing the Idaho Veterans Guide and getting it excited and ingrained into our veteran community is the analytics. I am an organizer by trade. I love it. I love project management. My job is to keep up with Mitzi wherever she is and whatever she's doing. So this to me was amazing. This is current analytics we're going to be getting on what our veterans are looking for and where. They get to search entirely anonymously from the privacy of their own home, but we still get the information on what they're looking for. And as you can see by this little heat map here, we get to see where they're looking as well. Why is that important? Well, if we go back to Middleton and the veteran looking for a food bank, and say we have 25 veterans in Middleton looking for a food bank. And I go to the one program card available in Middleton as a food bank, and their card is listed at capacity. That tells me there is a need, that there are people they're willing to help, but they don't have the support they need at that moment. This is current data. This isn't 2 years old. Things haven't changed. This is what just happened yesterday. I can pull information on what people looked for just last week. And then I can take that information, compile it into useful data, and provide it to the organization so they can go out and get help. Mitzi and I can get on the road and ask for support from our local community partners. And we can even take it to the big decision makers and present it to them on what the needs are in our veteran community and how we can better serve them. Again, it's huge to me because this gives people something to look at, to see the evidence. It's not just, well, I feel that people are asking for this. This might be a need. Nope, you can say, here are the numbers. Here's what this food bank is at. They're at capacity. We need to help them. And before I go on too much farther, I'll let you know, Mitzi and I's job now, as you can tell, after I connected with my VSO and I went through this process, we started working on the Idaho Veterans Guide. I actually started working at IDVS after I started working on the guide and became part of the outreach team. Now, the outreach team for Idaho is fairly new, but it is very successful. Mitzi was already very involved in her community, and she's actually been nicknamed the godmother of the veteran community for the reason that she really steps in when the needs of the veterans fall between the cracks of traditional benefits. So we go out there and we promote our VSOs, both state and county. And when a veteran says, you know, the VA doesn't cover this, we can confirm it with the VSO and take that need of the veteran, whether it be they need their house fixed, they need a sewer line fixed, maybe they need dental work that isn't covered by the VA. We take those requests out into the community, and those amazing gentlemen and women that you may see in front of an Albertsons or something like that with a little table set up for Military Order, the Purple Heart, or Vietnam Veterans of America, those are really my heroes because they're raising funds to support those requests. They're usually the ones we go to and get those veterans taken care of to make sure they get to live life to their fullest and that we're giving back to them when they basically sign that blank check to us. So I love my job. I get to help veterans and I get to connect with amazing groups and organizations. But this data also really helps us know where those needs are so we can take it back to those organizations and say, this food bank in Middleton needs more food. Can we either start a collection or do you have money donations? And more often than not, actually, I've never had one go over 48 hours of a request for a need for support for a veteran or an organization that needs more support. It's never gone longer than 48 hours without somebody in our community stepping up and making that happen. So I love my job. I love my community. But that is really why we created the Idaho Veterans Guide, these analytics to level the playing field and to give that access to our entire community, not just individual pockets here and there. This is an entirely open network. People could log on and sign up and list their program, and I don't have a say on it. It's all gone through a third-party system through that findhelp.org. They have designated teams that make sure the information is accurate. And they also check it twice a year. If information is listed and not claimed by the organization, they go through and make sure it's all up to date. And then if someone does try to say, hey, this is my program, I want to edit the information, they take the time to make sure that is a legitimate request, that they are tied to the organization, and that this information is as current and correct as possible. So it really removes any biases I might have or anybody in the community, opens it up to an entirely open network, and keeps our information secure. So that is the why and kind of the how of the Idaho Veterans Guide. And now I'm going to move into navigating. I just wanted to pause one more minute and see if there were any questions. Think we're good? Perfect. All right. So this is the landing page for the Idaho Veterans Guide. And as you can see, there's going to be a few things I want to point out on the page here, which I highlighted to help me remember. But this is how you would search, and it's all by zip code. So if you have someone that comes across your day-to-day and they need services, or you just have that funny feeling that they might need to connect to someone in their community, the first thing is find out where they're from, find out what area you could look at. And that is because you can search any zip code here within the United States. So if they're traveled and just say, I'm trying to help my mom in Texas, yes, you can plug in a Texas zip code here and you will get resources in Texas. That's the beauty of that open network. But do find out where they're from and search by zip code. I also like to point out a few things that are established here on the platform to remove some barriers. The first big one is language barriers. English is not the first language for a lot of our service members. So down there in this lower left-hand corner is a language selection, selecting the best language available. And there are many. And then there's also going to be an option to find programs that only speak certain languages or can accommodate other languages. There are many filters and options out there to remove all those barriers to the guide. Down here in the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see that suggest and claim programs. This I just like to point out because this is always at the bottom right-hand corner of all the screens on Idaho Veterans Guide. And this is where we'll get into if you do have a program that you would like to list, or you see your program listed and you would like to have control over it and edit the information. This is where you would go to start that process. They do have you first search for the program to make sure it's not listed somewhere else, and then start you through the claim or suggest steps. So I like to point that out. I won't be going into it as much today, but we do have a YouTube available, a YouTube video and tutorial on it available, as well as a PDF that if you email me, and you will see that at the end of this presentation, I will happily get you all that information or help you suggest or claim your program. And then lastly, in the upper corner, there is a login. Again, this is entirely free. And if you find yourself in the position of helping veterans quite often, I would encourage you to go ahead and create an account. Again, this information is secure, but this helps you manage if you do share a program card with a veteran in need, or you do go through that referral system and refer them directly to that program, you can manage that information and make sure that they did get connected to that program, or do a follow-up if you so choose. So once you type in a zip code, you'll see I typed in 83704. This is the next window that pops up. You can see we have over 2,000 programs available. Now this number has just been going up. We launched the Idaho Veterans Guide in March of this year, and I would say, gosh, we've had at least 20 programs added monthly. I believe last month we had over 30 programs added or claimed. So this number goes up, and these are local, state, and national resources available to you. And you'll see on the program card on how to figure out which one is which. There's a few ways to navigate these resources. If you're not quite sure what you're looking for, you can see this blue line with all these pretty icons. These are the categories in which you can search. If you hover over those, you will get drop-down menus to more specify your search results. So for an example, if you go into money, you will go into financial. Do you need help with housing? Do you need a housing loan? Food, do you need food banks? Do you need volunteer services? There's so many options below these to help you narrow your search if you're not quite sure what you're looking for. But if you do know what you're looking for, you can go up to that keyword search up at the top. And most of the time, I always like to say, I always start with a VSO. If you meet a veteran and you're not sure what their needs are or where they're at in that process, connect them to a VSO. Our VSOs will meet with them one-on-one. And even if the veteran isn't quite ready to file for benefits, they're going to connect them to Mitzi or I, or some of the many projects we're involved in. We put on multiple events to also kind of encourage veterans to come out and connect to their community. So that is, if you're unsure where to start, always look for a veteran advocate. And that is what I typed in here. I believe I typed in veteran advocacy, and these are the search results. So this is that program card that I keep talking about. There's a lot of information on this page. And again, I said earlier that these are all resources available to veterans and their families. If they only want veteran specific resources, this is where I'd have them go into that personal filters and really narrow down their search. But a few ways to control your results of what pops up here and as your list of program cards. One, up here in the upper right-hand corner, you see relevance or closest. I always keep it set to relevance because over there on the left-hand side, you see that beautiful map. So that's going to tell you really what's closest to you because zip codes can be a broad area. If you do closest to you, it'll just go by zip code. And then you'll lose that little map. Also over here under the next steps area on this right-hand side of your program card, you'll see there it says serves nationwide. This is where you can find out what's local to your zip code, what's statewide for your state and service area, or what's listed nationwide, because some people do only like local resources. But if you do want to narrow down your personal filters, this is the drop-down menu. So it is no joke. You have many personal filter options. These are all the options available for the program cards that are listed. So you can see there under Armed Forces, under Veteran Advocacy, we have options such as Active Duty, National Guard, and Veterans. But as you can see there's a lot more options. If you're dealing with a disabled veteran, you can go into health and get more specified personal filters to make sure the results are more tailored towards your veteran. So again, this is something I also like to point out, because if you are listing your program, you're going to want to be sure that when it goes that who you serve area, you list as many of these tags as you can, because this is how you will generate in those search results. So that's just a little bit about the personal filters. Program filters, there's less options. There we go. But just as important to me, these control the actual program services themselves. If you want to call, visit, or email, their availability hours or their costs. Are they just reduced cost, or are they entirely free? And then again, you can see there the language select. These are, again, programs that are available in additional languages, not the guide, which is available in all languages. And then the last one is income eligibility levels. This just asks the number of people in your household, as well as that income eligibility, because some of these programs, again, are only based on income levels. So that's a little bit about the filters on if you want to gather more information from the veterans. But again, I like to keep it very open and broad so that they are connecting to all resources available to them in their communities, because I am all about promoting that community connectiveness. All right, so back to this listing here. Again, this is the program card, and that the most important part on this is that big teal button. This one says see next steps, but for a program that is claimed by an organization, they control this button. Why that's so important is this is what guarantees that dignity of a response. So if the organization already has an intake system set up and they don't want to duplicate their services, all they have to do is plug their program card into their existing workflow, and there's no complication. They don't have to deal with any other steps or forms for the Idaho Veterans Guide. It goes directly to them. But those organizations that maybe don't have a system in place, that need a little help making sure they guarantee that response, this is where they can set up that screener intake form. They can set up their referral system, or they can have that schedule an appointment. So this button may say different things. It may say refer or schedule or apply, or here it says see next steps. But this is where you really connect to the organization in a way that the organization is set up. Unfortunately, this is a nationwide card you're looking at. And if you'll notice right by the arrow, the upper right-hand corner of that card is blank. Next slide I'm going to show you is our Veteran Advocacy Office, and it is not blank. It has a check mark and a badge. Why this is so important? That check mark tells me that the organization that claimed the card, which in this case is the Idaho Division of Veteran Services, they've gone in and edited this information. They've controlled that teal button down in the bottom. So I know they know how to use the guide, and that they will respond to us if we send a referral through the system. The little badge next to them, that's one of my favorite things to see, tells me not only have they claimed their program, they have gone through our education and tutorial opportunities to make sure they're making the most of the guide. So this one, you can see our Veterans Advocacy Office serves the Caldwell area. What is so beautiful is that we have all our offices set up. So no matter what zip code you put in, the appropriate office will generate on that listing. And I do screenshots to keep these presentations simple and so that my computer doesn't freeze on me. But if I had scrolled down on those listings, you would have seen our Veteran Advocacy office listed next. We do have one in the Boise area. We have them all over the state of Idaho, and they are all listed just like this, the Office of Veterans Advocacy. This is where you would go if you wanted to find the next steps for a veteran or a veteran service officer. But if you weren't sure, you couldn't remember what we were called, the Office of Veteran Advocacy, I will actually be meeting with all our VSOs next week and encouraging them to list their programs as Veterans Advocacy Services. So no matter what you put in, veteran services, veteran advocacy, they will populate and you will get the veteran that is nearest you, because we do have county VSOs and we do have state VSOs. So no matter what, you can go to the guide and find a VSO in your area. So the last thing I really wanted to talk about is how this is tied into you, how it's tied into our libraries. And really, it's not just about our libraries, it's about our community as a whole. We interact with our veterans every day, and that's a big reason why this guide was created. You are all my boots on the ground to make sure that veterans are seeing that next step. They're connecting to their community and they're connecting to these resources, and we get them through that doorway and on that path to recovery. One big thing I'm a part of, one of the other hats I wear, is something called the Governor's Challenge. Now, it's actually a nationwide veteran suicide prevention initiative. And its main goal is to get us all on the same page, speaking the same language, and knowledge of what to do if we interact with a veteran in crisis or a veteran who's just kind of stuck in that I don't know what to do next. Now, veterans in crisis, always call 988. There is the press one option for veterans, but 988 is the suicide crisis hotline. That is our go-to and our encouragement for all veterans in that situation. But my goal is to reach veterans before they get to that point, to help them find that doorway, to help them manage that total or whole health approach. Get them financial assistance, get them that ride to the VA if their car's broken down or they can't afford gas money. Get them connected to friends and a purpose. That is really my mission. And I can complete that mission with me sharing my knowledge with everyone here and everyone utilizing the Idaho Veterans Guide to get veterans to that next step. So as part of the Governor's Challenge, we have screening and connectedness. Screening means ask the question, are they a veteran? Is the person you're talking to that may be stuck in that bad way a veteran or a family member of veteran? And if so, if they say yes, what do you do then? You go to the Veterans Guide. Ask them if they've connected with a VSO. Ask them if they're a part of any leagues or they have any interest to talk with somebody. Chances are they'll say no, but we veterans can be stubborn, but we do have these cards all over the place. You can give them this card. If you would like some at your library, we'd greatly appreciate these being readily available, but just giving them this and letting them know, well, if you ever change your mind, if you ever want to find a resource or you want to connect to a VSO, here's some information on the Idaho Veterans Guide. Or if they say yes, you know what you can do. And you can go on the Idaho Veterans Guide and you can look up those VSOs, or you can look up local programs. Maybe they say, I have this condition and I really need help and I don't know where to start. I hope that today I've been able to give you enough information to help them find that place to start. And as always, just call me, call a VSO, reach out to the Division of Veterans Services. We're all one big family. And when a request come in, we all tackle it together. That's kind of the next part, helping the veterans find the doorway and then helping veterans contact a VSO. But another way you can use the Idaho Veterans Guide is if you have a program, please list it. Again, all you have to do is suggest claim, and then you have the option to edit. If you get stuck on that at all, please reach out to me. I am more than happy to help. It is, again, my mission. So if you have a program, and again, even if it's not veteran specific, that doesn't mean you won't serve veterans, I hope. So I'll help you get that listed on this database for everyone. This will go into the nationwide database so that, if someone lives in Florida and they have to find a resource for their veteran in Idaho, they can still find you. So that is what I have for the Idaho Veterans Guide today. I know I got done a little early. I get excited and I talk too fast. So I'll pause for questions. That is my information, but I will turn it back over to Annie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And while folks are formulating their questions and typing in the chat, I just wanted to say thank you so much for presenting this information. We've seen different versions of that findhelp.org. So it's very cool to see this veterans focused one. I'm very excited to see that in practice. And it was so great to hear your personal perspective on this population, because that's really useful and important information for us as librarians, because we really value our patrons and we see them as whole people, and we care about their well-being. And so I feel like this is really, really useful and valid information for folks as they're helping their patrons.
Absolutely. And I always say, like, even if they come and say, I'm not a veteran, I'm just stuck, I need help, you can still use the Idaho Veterans Guide, but you understand, I hopefully now, like findhelpidaho.org is also great for anybody in need. So this is just a great way to get all those resources in front of anyone who needs it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. Just a thank you in the chat. So I'm not seeing any questions, but when I send out the recording to folks that have registered, I can include your email address if that's okay, so that if people have questions for you about the service or about other issues relating to this in Idaho, they can reach out.
Absolutely. And again, we do have those tutorials on listing your own program and how to claim that if you would like additional information on that. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or a veteran in need.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.